Got a couple folks coming in, so it's like Michael and Rochelle and Brady.
Welcome. We'll just give it a couple of more minutes to see if we have a couple of more attendees join us today. Hi, Michael and Marshall and Brady. I see that you are out there as attendees. If we have a small group today, we're going to go ahead and add you as panelists so we can have a more intimate discussion and see each other in this conversation.
Okay, everybody's been moved into the room.
I think we'll go ahead and get started. We will watch to see if anyone else pops up in the attendees group, and we'll add them as panelists as they arrive, as long as we can identify who they are in the conversation. So I'll go ahead and get started. I was going to start with a welcome and introductions, but I think that we all know each other, so that makes that easy. I think you all know me. I'm Kelly Sparks, and my role here is finance and strategic planning and public safety as a part of our administrative group here at OSU-Cascades. I'll have Shane, you go ahead and introduce yourself, and Brady, as you joined us as well. And then Nathan Moses, you all know, is our moderator today and helping us with the technology, and will be helping read questions as they may come up in the Q&A.
Yep, I think I know everyone here. Shane Boudrin, the Director of Public Safety here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brady Lyons. I'm a Public Safety Officer here.
Terrific. All right. So today, what we'd like to do is give you an overview of public safety as it looks today, and then talk about our call to action for the future. And then we have some questions to prompt our discussion at the end. So we'll spend the first about 25-30 minutes talking and sharing information, and then we will open for discussion at the end. So I wanted to start with, this is OSU at large. So all OSU public safety has created a set of principles based on their listening with faculty and staff and students, primarily on the Corvallis campus over the last year. I wanted to share this statement because I think it's an important overarching principle for public safety at large for OSU, and calling out some of the important language here being around that we're following an educational model in all of the work that we do. Our goal is to be responsive and non-escalatory, to be restorative, not punitive wherever possible in the work that we do. And that we acknowledge that we should all feel a sense of safety on campus, but that every member of our community's experience with law enforcement, and in our case, public safety, is different. And we seek to advance and support an environment within the university that is welcoming, compassionate, and caring, and that is trusting and diverse. So just want to acknowledge that this is our overriding principle for all of OSU, not just the Corvallis campus.
All right, I'll take over this part. Just wanted to go over the mission and goals for the department here. And primarily, we're here to keep you all physically safe. Secondarily, to protect your stuff and the university's stuff. And then to help make the campus a friendly place to be. We're a small but experienced team here. There's only 3, including myself in the department right now. Normally we're at 4, but we with COVID cutbacks and everything, and that makes us not 24/7 currently, but that will hopefully happen in the not too distant future. But we do answer the phone 24/7. So I know the ASCC letter had lots of questions about what are our actual authorities and responsibilities. So we're governed, or have to fall under both state and federal law. So these are the federal requirements that we operate under. The first one's kind of to let the public know the security and crime statistics on campus for past years. The Cleary Act is key also, that it's more of a modification to the first one and provides more specifics. And additionally, it requires timely warnings and emergency notifications for campus threats to safety that we are required by law to put out to keep people informed and safe. FERPA is a privacy law that protects student records. I think most of you are probably familiar with Title IX. It prevents sex-based discrimination on campus, and the Violence Against Women Act falls closely with the Cleary Act as far as timely warnings and emergency notifications on crimes, certain sexual crimes that occur on campus. So the last slide was the federal statutes. This slide is state statutes that we fall under, and predominantly, the first one is one of the main ones, and it basically just provides the authority to provide security and manage traffic and parking on campus. That's 352.118. 352.121 is basically if you have an established police department on campus. 164.205, the person in charge authority is the primary authority that public safety here operates under. It basically gives us the ability to exclude or trespass someone off campus if they're misbehaving. Basically, we can ask them to leave, and if they refuse to leave, we can call the police and have them arrested or removed from campus. 133.310 and 133.315, those both apply to a campus police department. So if you're not aware, Corvallis, the Corvallis campus recently on 1 January stood up their own police department. And so those statutes primarily apply to them and don't really affect us here at all. And lastly, 181.912 is Kaylee's Law. If you remember the Kaylee Sawyer murder by a campus public safety officer on COCC, this provided additional requirements and restrictions for campus public safety elements in regards to what uniforms and equipment we are either required or restricted from having, and also additionally provides psychological screening requirements for campus public safety officers. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And we've recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the Bend Police Department. They provide crime and law enforcement on campus here, just like they do anywhere within the city of Bend. The MOU basically just further delineates on how we will interact and cooperate with each other and what authorities each other has. So it's just more of a more specificity to the to our interactions with each other. And lastly, you get down to OSU policies. They don't have force of law. They just have basically force of student conduct and things like that. So this is a public university and the First Amendment applies. So we do have some things we can do regarding time, place, and manner for speech activities. Like you can't block emergency exits, you can't block sidewalks or the parking lot are kind of the main ones that fall under that. Animals on campus, vehicle use and parking policies for the university. And this is university-wide for all the campuses that these things apply. So part of our job with public safety is to help enforce this, these items. And generally the way that we do that is we don't issue citations or anything like that. What happens is we basically ask someone to stop the behavior that they're doing and try to de-escalate, and then we write a report, and if it warrants it, that report goes to student conduct to be dealt with later. Also, there's a lot of policies under the housing agreements, and that deals with specifically with room entries and things like that by university staff, and it's part of the agreement when someone resides in the residence hall that they have to sign. And it guides us, and not just housing staff, but also public safety falls under this, along with custodial and facilities and everyone. As far as how the department trains its officers, these are 4 kind of different brackets of training types that we do. So under the public safety bracket, we all attend a 14-hour unarmed security professional certification course. And this is from the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. This is the same folks that train police officers, corrections officers, and fire department personnel in Salem. And it's basically it's a state sanctioned course for all security guards, whether public or private. And this applies to a security guard at Costco, to a security guard at a mall, to university security as well. We also have University Campus Safety Authority. This has state law reporting requirements that if someone informs us, I've been raped or sexually assaulted on campus, we have certain reporting requirements. And this is not just for public safety staff, but for basically anyone that falls under that campus safety authority, which includes most faculty and staff. We train on defensive tactics, both to protect ourselves and others. Under this MOAB, it's a management of aggressive behavior certification, and it also deals predominantly with de-escalation tactics and techniques. Basically, we try to de-escalate first. We can't de-escalate. It teaches us how to defend ourselves and others. We also get certified on pepper spray, how to handcuff, and expandable batons in conjunction with that MOAB certification. On the crisis intervention side, we try to get everyone through psychological first aid. It's a 8-hour course, and it's really good. It goes over how to deal with everything from someone having an anxiety attack to someone who's suicidal to someone who's mentally ill, and basically how to properly deal with them and de-escalate. We do take a lot of extra suicide prevention training, QPR specifically. We also have Safe Talk training set up with the youth line over that's based out of the GRC. Then we have medical training. We're all CPR, first aid, and AD certified. We take additional online courses on how to deal with bloodborne pathogens, as well as how to deal with someone who's having a seizure. Because some of the signs and symptoms of seizures can resemble mental illness and be seen as something else. So learning to recognize, someone who's in a seizure situation versus someone who's misbehaving is very important. On the emergency management, incident management side, the incident command system we utilize here at the school, and this is a national program run through FEMA. All of our officers go through the basic courses on how to manage incidents, everything from someone getting an owie from a trip and a fall to a mass casualty incident on campus. And lastly, we all get training on FERPA, what information we're authorized to release, or student information that we have to protect. We go over with all our chemical and biology labs, all the equipment in there. And one of the instructors walks us through and shows us what to shut off, what not to touch, and what things are dangerous, including all the chemical storage and things like that. We get some driver training with the passenger van, as well as with the winter weather here, the Deschutes County puts on a skid car class, so we can drive in the winter weather here. And also, these are kind of the required classes that we have, and we also try to pursue other professional development courses as they become available. We always look for opportunities to work with the fire department, EMTs, and things like that to get more advanced training when available. And it's kind of a time and budget constrained issue on that, but we're always looking for new training to do. Some of the services that we provide in the different brackets there, we do a lot of it, before COVID, we were doing a lot of education and prevention items on campus. That goes from the emergency operations planning and creating incident action plans for both planned and unplanned events or incidents. The campus education is everything from how to protect yourself from being a victim of crime to active shooter and lockdown, lockout, fire drills, things like that. Safety and preparedness, we do provide a safe escort service. So if you're uncomfortable walking out to your car at night in the parking lot or between here and the GRC, we will either walk you or accompany you on foot or give you a ride in our patrol car on request. And we have protocols in place to make sure that's done safely and efficiently, and it's all recorded as well. We do enforcement, like I said, of both parking and of university regulations. But as I mentioned before, that is done. Basically, we ask people to stop any bad behavior that they're doing, and we write up our reports, and the reports go to student conduct. Is how we conduct that enforcement of university regulations. But we work closely with with housing and the resident assistants there. And they take lead in all housing related issues. We're there to provide them backup, or if things start to escalate, that's where we'll step in. And we're primarily, the main reason that we're really here is for life safety issues. We bridge that response gap for both medical, fire, and security incidents. We hold the fort until the EMTs can get there, or the fire department, or the police if it's a crime in progress, and to keep people safe and protected while they're here.
As we look forward, we have identified a call to action for our campus, and that is to focus on public safety and crisis intervention. So we hope that in the coming year that together we can create or develop a set of shared values for public safety and crisis intervention, update our public safety mission and goals. You may or may not be aware, but recently Shane has decided to leave OSU-Cascades and pursue his next life experience in the Ozarks. We will miss him, but as we do that, we'd like to engage students, faculty, and staff to recruit and onboard a new public safety director for OSU-Cascades. We will, over the course of the coming year, evaluate the services that we provide, those that are required and those that are needed on campus. Take the opportunity to research other universities and community safety and crisis intervention programs. There may be best practices and there may be poor practices. We want to make sure that we identify all of those and look at the continuum of services that we might offer. And then together lay out a shared 3-year vision for public safety and crisis intervention, and then make sure that we continue our dialogue together through an ongoing development of a public safety advisory team specific to OSU-Cascades. So for today, I have a couple of questions that I'm hoping, I have that slide. That slide's very important. I have it twice apparently. So I have a couple of questions that I'm hoping that can maybe prompt our conversation today in the early development of this call to action. The first is talking about the qualities and skills that students would be looking for in our next public safety director. To talk about what you see as essential onboarding activities as we think towards hiring and likely in the early part of the fall, September 1 target as a start date for that position. How and what would you like to see us do as we onboard that new director? And what would you like to see more of from our team and maybe areas of improvement for our team? So I have a notes page here for each of the questions, and I thought, and other ideas, if you have other things that you want to bring to the table, we also have space for that today as well. But really looking, Michael, you and Marichelle, opening up the floor for your input today.
Sure. I definitely think that in the future, campus safety, maybe expanding mental health services on campus would definitely be a big priority for students. I know that's something that people would be interested in as well.
And just to let you know, in the last few months, Deschutes County has a stabilization center that we've developed a good relationship with now. Because normally they wouldn't come out for calls from the general public. It'd have to be run through the police department, but we've worked out, they recognize our training and that there's a lot of gray area situations where a crime hasn't occurred, but someone's in a mental health crisis. And when we call them now, they're much more willing to come out when we call them because they know we're dealing with something that is outside of our capabilities that we need someone here to deal with. And we've used that service a couple times recently, and it's definitely a vast improvement over services within Deschutes County. So we do have a good relationship with them on the mental health support side.
So Michael, I'd like to ask a couple of questions here to probe a little bit into this. I've heard of a couple of different models out there and just some preliminary look. One is that some campuses have kind of an after hours crisis intervention team that is made up primarily of mental health counselors, mental health intervention specialists. And their role is to be available kind of in collaboration with potentially a public safety, someone who's providing the safety side. I've also heard of student peer counselors that are out there. And then I've also heard of some kind of safety student peers working on kind of the safety escort or safety support side to traverse campus or to move between buildings. When you're talking about mental health support on campus, can you talk about maybe some of the ways that you see those services being provided, or the types of the type of role that you're thinking of?
Sure. So when I guess when I'm saying mental health services, it is definitely that crisis prevention and crisis services. I think having that available for students, but also just counseling in general, I think. I don't know how that fits into the campus safety portion of this, but I think like we can maybe prevent some of the escalation to a crisis or something if we have a more robust mental health counseling services on campus. I'm actually really curious about that student counselor thing, the peer counselor thing. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, and I honestly have, Natalie Bowker mentioned it to me. Natalie is our counselor on campus today. She mentioned that they have a program at Linfield where they do student peer counselors. I don't know a lot about it. I'm curious if you feel, it's something that I think we should dive into and do some research over the summer to see the effectiveness of the program, what kind of training they provide for those students. Could it maybe be a part of our counseling program? Could we reach out to our master's in counseling students? Is there maybe a service that we could provide? Could we extend the clinic that we're offering for the community with our master's in counseling program? I don't know that I have an answer. I'm curious if you feel like it's something we should research further and explore as an option.
I mean, that would be really interesting if that is something we could develop, and if it is like community facing as well, that would be really cool. A cool way to integrate the campus with the community.
Okay. Marshall, do you want to add to this part of the conversation as well? Do you have insight or thoughts here?
Just with mental health support on campus, definitely the outreach and the direct connection. I've been sitting on a lot of committees for Title IX response and resources, and I just want to know that moving forward, there's like an intersectional approach to when these students first make these reports. I want to know that there is when these conversations are happening, it's not happening in a binary fashion, which I've seen in some of these conversations where we're just talking about male or female participants and not recognizing diversity and gender identity, as well as sexual orientation. I can add on to this conversation after we're done, as I have a question that I've written out, but when it comes to the mental health aspect, I think that that's very important, especially as these community of underrepresented students are most likely to face victimization on our campus. And we need to have a responsive team that's able to accept them as they are versus creating stigmatization and isolating. So I think that that needs to definitely be considered when we're offering mental health resources.
Great, thank you, Marshall. I just want to call out that Title IX is not a part of the public safety. The response to Title IX incidents is not a part of the scope of the work that the public safety team does. So I will, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I will share this feedback, and I think it's really important. And I think as we think about the continuum of support and the response to that, that we'll want to partner with our Title IX group as well in this. So I'm going to capture the comments, but it may not be something that within the public safety we can respond to specifically, but as a campus we need to respond.
Yeah, I think it's more just recognizing that when a rape or a sexual assault happens on campus, one of the first points of contact can be public safety.
Yep, that's a very good point. Are there other comments on mental health support that we should capture, or should we move on to the next topic? Okay, I'll move us forward. Marshall, you mentioned that you had a question. Do you want to take that one next?
Yeah, you might have addressed this in the previous comment, but I'm just going to read it out because I think it's important for general awareness. My question is around recognizing intersectionality, and as an underrepresented student, as a survivor of sexual assault, and as a bisexual queer woman, I come from a demographic that has the highest rates of violence, with 61% of bisexual women facing higher rates of violence and sexual assault, rape, stalking on campus, intimate partner violence, when compared with 44% for lesbian and 35% for heterosexual women and counterparts. A lot of my research in my classes, especially for sociology, have shown that this is the same for male counterparts. So on the different levels of how they identify sexually, it determines the levels of violence that are faced and is increased by non-binary and trans students, especially in the current campus and political climate we have. There are higher rates for non-binary and trans students on our campus. And with my research, it has shown that the victimization rates for these groups happen between the ages of 15 to 25, so anywhere from high school to college age women. So I just want there to be an acknowledgement from our public safety and from the response teams that actively work with these students, that they are aware of these high rates of violence and how it intersects with different levels of power and privilege, not just from sexual orientation, but gender identity, also race, ability, age, all these different levels of identity. But it's very important for me to know that with the future of public safety, that they are aware of these statistics and actively have these in the conversations moving forward, especially for how it interacts with the direct contact point and then handing it off to Title IX resources, because a lot of students that come forward about these incidents or things of violence will immediately be shut down or not validated in their experience, and then they won't move forward with the Title IX response, and they won't move forward with actually getting justice, or at least trying to have some kind of care or seeking out therapy or mental health resources. So I think that it's very important that, yes, maybe the public safety team is not responsible for the whole care, but they're the initial point of contact. And if that is not recognized, then you could turn away or turn people off from actually getting the help they need.
And Marichelle, maybe I can address that. So we are aware of the statistics, but what's more important is that that Cleary Act and the VAWA Act, basically the way that those are written, they're gender neutral as far as the definitions of the crime. So sexual violence of any type directed against anyone, there are certain reporting requirements, and especially like things like stalking, for example. If we hear the word stalking or hear of any report of activity, whether it's from a third party or not, we have to take action on it. I mean, it's required by law. So we treat any report that comes to us as viable, even if it's later proven not. It still goes into our statistics, and we do take action on it as required under those federal acts.
Marshall, could you send me that question so that I have that in writing? I would really appreciate that if you wouldn't mind emailing me so I have those statistics. And it seems like this is an opportunity for us to continue to build this, I think, directly into our onboarding for our new public safety director. And potentially as a part and for future public safety officers, very specifically, and then thinking about how we build this into continuing education. Recently, we built into our tentative strategic plan a specific action around, Nathan, can you add Aaron? It looks like he's joined our attendees to the panelists. Sorry, aside.
Yep, just added.
Comment there.
Welcome, Aaron.
It seems like this is an opportunity for us to expand further upon in this area. Does that does that seem to be responsive to part of what you're saying there?
Yes, I have my question written out, and then I also have, this was part of a final project I had on gender and society, and it has a more nuanced breakdown of why this violence exists, especially, I mean, I am speaking from a limited perspective as a white, bisexual, queer, cis woman, you know, and there are different identity levels, but in my experience as a bisexual woman and as a sexual assault survivor sitting on these committee meetings, in response to our ex-president, sometimes I've just heard things in conversations that maybe they don't intend harm, but it's very limited in understanding who could be a victim or a survivor. And I think that that really limits our capacity to help these people that are going to have higher rates of victimization because of their identity groups.
Thank you. I would really appreciate seeing the work that you've done on that topic. I think it would be helpful to hear and be informed from your perspective. And then let's talk about how we build intersectionality into our onboarding and continuing education programming for public safety. And then I will work to extend that outreach into which committee are you serving on as it relates to Title IX?
I believe it's with Jane Reynolds. And Erin, can you, you just popped in, but can you tell me the exact title?
Yeah, so I think if you're referring to what I think you're referring to, we have kind of I guess you could call like a task force, kind of a ad hoc group that's come together just to talk about how we might be ways that we might be able to increase or improve our both violence prevention and support services. And so, you know, we had kind of an initial meeting where we had folks from SARC in Corvallis, as well as folks from Saving Grace. So I don't know if it's like formalized with an official title, but we do have kind of a group of folks that have been getting together to have some conversation about that. And it's definitely central in my radar for sure.
And perhaps we can talk more offline about how we connect the dots between the work that's happening there and this work that's happening here.
And I just wanted to thank Shane for clarifying some of those topics, because I know that I wasn't aware of that. And especially when I was sitting on these committees, I wasn't sure what was happening on public safety's end. So I appreciate knowing that.
Yeah, and just to follow up too, we, you know, a lot of times, a lot of the issues that we have is that the victim will not want to make a police report, which is their right. We'll encourage it, but we are required by federal law to take action on any report that comes to us. So, you know, that's something that we have to deal with when talking to the victim. It's like, if you inform us of a sexual assault or some other sexual crime, we are no longer, you know, we have to take action. We can't, like, even if they, you know, the victim says, no, I just wanted to tell someone, yeah. And it has to do with not just the victim's safety, but also the safety of other people on campus. So if someone reports a rape and they tell us that the assaulter was someone in the residence hall, obviously you can see the issue with that, oh my God, now we have a rapist living in our residence hall and we have to take some kind of action to help protect others. So a lot of times the victim doesn't like hearing that, but it's part of our information process that, like, yes, I know you want to keep it quiet and it will be a non-identifiable report, but we need to take some kind of action, i.e. like with a timely warning or something like that, to keep others on campus safe as well.
So I'm going to go back to the bigger question here. Do you have qualities or skills in particular that you're looking for in our next public safety director? You can throw out words or phrases or concepts, whatever may be top of mind here. Nothing in particular?
Just for who we're looking for in hiring qualities for the next person?
Yep. And the qualities that would be the hiring qualities. What kind of director are we looking for? What kind of person are we looking for in this role? What might their background be?
I think listening is a huge part of a position like this, listening and understanding student voice, especially if that's the population that, you know, they're serving and protecting. Just looking at things that have happened recently as a dual enrolled student and being very aware of Kaylee's situation, and that, you know, those changes were made because students came together and organized. So I think that that should be a central part of moving forward. If anyone else wants to chime in, I've talked today.
Okay, I'm going to move us forward to the next question here. Whoops, it's choosing not to. Apparently it wants to only go to the end. Oh, it's frozen. Okay, I'm going to stop for share and reshare and see if I can get back. Well, darn it, I'm going to. All right, let's see if I can do this again here. All right. So thinking about as we onboard our new director, Marshall, I'll move forward your comment on intersectionality because I think that's an important comment here. Are there other ways that you want, what do you want us to communicate? How do you want us to bring that person into our community, our culture, our campus? We went through a list of training earlier where we talked about some of the safety, the crisis intervention, other related trainings. Are there areas of focus that you feel like should be, that we should do more of, do less of?
I mean, I definitely think that a campus safety officer in general, who they're having to deal with, you know, people from a diversity of backgrounds. And so definitely ensuring that folks have cultural competency trainings. I think that needs to be a really high priority for campus safety, and especially for the head of campus safety.
Thank you, Michael.
I would piggyback off of that, and something that I've seen that's been successful at COCC is having campus safety, when we're allowed in person, interact with diverse groups on campus, making a point of being in those club spaces when important conversations are happening.
Can I piggyback off of that for just 1 second, Kelly?
Yeah, Brady.
So Marshall, before COVID took place, one of the things that the other public safety officer, Lori, and I would do often is there would be intentional talks. It was like circle groups essentially happening on campus with some of the communications professors. And whether we were on duty or not, Lori and I made a point to go to those, just to be a presence on campus. And that's something that as we hire the new director and get another public safety officer in here, that we're looking for a cultural fit of having that intentional interaction with students and other student groups, so that we stay plugged into what's going on campus. And I think that we've done a good job of doing that in the past, but obviously COVID had other plans. So we have done that in the past, and I look forward to continuing to do it in the future when we're allowed to gather together in bigger groups.
Is that something with the upcoming of the Restorative Justice Lab that we could have a collaboration with? Would you know, Erin?
Are you thinking about the Lab for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that Erica McAlpine is doing?
Yeah,
I think we just have to ask her. I think my understanding is at the moment that a lot of her work is kind of community facing, but I know she has an interest in engaging students in her work moving forward. So I think it would probably just be a question for Erica.
And then the equity lounge that you two, you and Michael are both working on, would that be a space if students were open?
Yeah, I think if students, obviously that space should be really student driven, but that's definitely a space that would, if folks wanted to have those conversations there, I think that would be a place where folks are hopefully will be gathering anyway, and maybe feel more comfortable in that space than in other spaces. So it's a good conversation to bring up.
And no ideas, right? We're just writing down ideas for us to explore with people right now. So we, any idea is open for exploration at this point.
Hey, Kelly, one thing that I heard too was, I don't remember what meeting we were in, but we were talking about like those evening events, like the pancake breakfast or like the fun kind of social things to get people outside of their, I want to say, quote unquote, their usual work environment. So maybe some intentional planning of activities where they may be something like a conversation circle can be an intense experience, especially for an introverted person. Maybe it's something like, hey, let's do this crazy thing on the parking lot and public safety hosts it, or, something like that. So.
Okay, I'll move to the next question then, or not. Oh, I do not know what's going on. My computer is apparently really wants to go to the end of this conversation. All right, I'll try again. This is an in general, what would you like to see more of from our public safety team? Would you like to see them more visible on campus, more walking around, more on a bicycle, more, what would you like to see more? What are the positives that you'd like to see more of from our team from a student perspective?
I definitely know from my perspective, I would really enjoy having a more open line of communication with campus safety, or at least like something that's more visibly advertised to students when they first come onto campus or something. I don't necessarily know if like having more officers just walking around would be a good thing or not. I don't know how students would react to that, but I definitely think having like an open line of communication for students would be really helpful.
How does that look to you, Michael? How does that how do you want to see that communication look?
Well, I definitely think some of the stuff we had talked about before, where it's like, having those initial socials and stuff where people get to know campus safety officers would be good. And then I think giving them a line of communication in some way, like an email or like someone they know they can communicate with directly, would be particularly helpful, especially people have like questions about their rights on campus, or just general questions about public safety on our campus. That's what it would look like to me, I think. I don't know if other people have input on that as well.
I know Taha might touch on it in the next meeting, but just definitely making sure that dorm residents know their rights from the beginning as an orientation and an onboarding process, and possibly having campus safety be there so they have a face to connect those concerns with. Definitely some of the information that was shared today's presentation, I think, should be part of an orientation pack for first year students or students that are coming on board. I think that would clarify what students can do in understanding their rights in the privacy of their room. So.
Yeah, one thing that maybe you all could help with is we do have presentations during Welcome Week and things like that. But I've been here 4 years now, and I think, the low attendance at those events has been a problem. You know, we do put that information out there, but it's not getting out. So different venues or different areas where we could get that info out would definitely be helpful to do.
Shane, is there potentially like a way to integrate like the campus safety talk with maybe another more popular event, just because it's like just to get the not to be insulting or anything, that's not what how I meant that to come off, but like having it like a hook or something in a different event that has more people, just to draw people from that. Has that been tried before?
Yeah, and actually we've been looking for venues like that, and then we had some plans to push hard with that, and then COVID happened and no one's on campus, and no one wants to be in extra Zoom meetings now. So we're really hopeful that come fall, when there's more people on campus, we can definitely get more involved with that kind of thing, and fun venues where people will actually show up, and like no one wants to go to a meeting to hear me drone on for 15 minutes on what we do on campus. It's funny, we actually get a lot of attendance by the parents during that time frame. Like, I think we've had like 30 or 40 parents in there, and then the student session will get 3 or 4 during like welcome week and things like that. So yeah, any ideas you have on that will be greatly appreciated on where we can spread the word. But as far as the residence hall stuff, we can definitely work with Amy over there for the new students, the orientation. We do that with new RAs and everything, and help train them on how we interact with them and things like that. But I definitely think that's a good idea to be in alignment and be there with housing for like the orientation meetings that Amy holds with new residents, and just so they can see our face and know that we're, what we are and are not allowed to do in the residence hall. And it's really no different from any other staff member.
To piggyback off of that, it's all contingent about on what the future looks like, right? Because in the past, pre-COVID, like we've been alluding to, pre-COVID, Lori and I both have had a lot of success with more informal settings as far as meeting with resident students, either when they're doing a game night or a movie night, or like I've done like informal like pool with public safety or something like that, where I'm talking to these people on a face-to-face informal, not like I'm forcing you to be here and you have to sit down and listen to me talk at you and that kind of stuff, because I don't think the information is really soaked up properly that way. And so in the past, we have gone into the residence hall, and I know that when clubs and stuff like that have come here over the summertime, we do like game nights and stuff, and we'll go in there and talk about, what to expect from us and what we expect from the people that we're interacting with. So it's just getting the opportunity to do more of that moving forward based off of how we bounce back from COVID.
One, I saw Aaron put something in the chat about having like short public safety videos or something. That would be really helpful, like having like on the campus safety website or something, having videos that are basically like that training, and then potentially having like a Q&A section below where there might be some like commonly asked questions about student rights or campus safety's involvement on campus. I think that would be really helpful, just as a place to point students to.
Yeah, and actually on that, we did, Lori actually, we public safety won the little faculty and staff award, because Lori put together a cute little cartoon that graphed our faces in there as cartoon characters to go over, kind of what public safety does. We actually posted it to, we have a channel on the, and I'm trying to remember the name of what do you call it? It's almost like a Facebook page for the campus. And we did post some stuff on there, but I just don't think it gets many hits. So we're thinking about redoing that cartoon, and Lori's actually talked about it. So definitely by the fall, I think we could put one of those cartoons on our main splash page on the website. I think would be helpful. And yeah, the Q&A on privacy rights in the residence hall, we could definitely do that as well.
Would it have to be a cartoon? Because I think it would be cool to see the campus safety folks' faces, like, as a way to kind of like get familiar with people, like who they are and stuff. I don't know if that.
Yeah, we definitely can do that. And there was one that I did as part of another presentation, and I think that is on the channel. But I get your drift with not just, you know, the quick 30-second one, but maybe like a minute or two video of each of the officers so that people can watch it, you know, at their leisure.
Let's see if I'm able to go to the next slide. Yeah. All right, what are areas of improvement? What do you want to see us do differently, not do again? What can we do to improve the department? New uniforms, new car.
Going on the idea of like uniforms and just distinguishing yourself apart from police enforcement, I think is very beneficial. I'm not sure what leeway you have, but I know in other countries, such as in Europe or different things like that, they normally wear bright yellow or something, so they stick out to people. They're not wearing blue, which kind of communicates this like secrecy or falling in the background. So I know that at COCC, Michael could probably chime in on this, but there were very intentional changes to vehicles as well. So public safety stood out better to students, and it wasn't just like a pseudo police force, it was actual like intention of what capabilities public safety has on campus.
It's hard to imagine that our car stands out like a police vehicle.
Yeah.
We have I think possibly the least intimidating vehicle of any safety team.
Our nickname for it's the toaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying though. Sorry, I'm just making, I know that Brady and Shane love our vehicle and feel like I've made a huge investment in
Yeah, we did change our uniforms recently to soften them a bit, different colored pants to further distinguish ourselves. But yeah, we can definitely, for the next iteration of uniforms, look to change that more. But we do need to be able to be spotted in a crowd. I worked the Eclipse event when I first came on board, and that's where it was really apparent that you definitely need something to be able to be spotted in a crowd when there's 2,000 people out on a field trying to find the other officer. It was very easy for me to pick them out in the crowd when I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have other ideas on what we can improve on.
I feel like a lot of them were addressed in the previous comments. So just these are like cosmetic things that I've seen in like other countries that I think make public safety more distinguished from like a police force. Definitely interested if there's any cross communication between our public safety and COCC's, just because they do have a lot of lived experience in the area. And
yeah,
a lot of our students are familiar with both.
Yeah, we actually coordinate pretty well with COCC and share ideas and things like that. Like, you know, they were talking to us about their uniform changes, and that kind of spurred us to look at ours as well.
Just a note,
aware that they have recently made a pretty significant organizational change, and that's now reporting to a different arm of the university up there, of the college up there, and they're talking about changes, maybe big changes for fall, and we are talking with them about how we might coordinate with them.
Yeah. And I actually, I'm meeting for coffee tomorrow with their new director, just to help him out as he's standing up and to share ideas.
Erin, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to reflect back part of what I was hearing in Marichel's comment maybe is the importance of communicating to students any differences between public safety at COCC and public safety here, right? If they're coming from that context and might have because I don't know a ton yet about what they do for public safety right now, but I know that I'd seen something in the media about the Bend Police wanting a school resource officer there. So I could see how, maybe a different landscape and might be worth explaining to students.
Yeah, Erin, there, I think you missed some of the explanatory statutes that we operate under. Public safety on community colleges and four-year public universities have entirely different authorities granted to them. And their MOU with Bend PD is entirely different than ours. So we do not necessarily operate in the same way there. And I think it would get a little, I would be hesitant for us to speak to how we are different because we don't always know how they operate. There's places where I think we can and should communicate and collaborate, and that's really around crisis intervention and supporting students in the, I would call it the care and education side. When it comes to the authorities and how they deal with crime or security on campus, that is a place that we will likely look very different as they think towards a community resource officer on campus. We've been very intentional in our communicated tenure strategy with Bend PD, which is on file as a part of our campus master plan, that we will own safety on campus, and here are the boundaries. And that's also what's documented in our MOU now with Bend PD. And here's information we'll share, and more importantly, information we won't share. And then here are the boundaries of when police pick up and come on campus to deal with a crime, whether it's a bike theft or a potentially an assault on campus. So it does look pretty different than a community college, COCC, or any other community college. But I don't know that we want to put written communications out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think my main point is just I can see how it'd be particularly important for folks to understand the way in which our public safety works in the boundaries if they're coming from a place that had a different kind of setup.
And actually, COCC did have a campus resource officer, assigned to them over this past year, and it kind of, or previous, and then it kind of went away with COVID. But part of the problem that they have with that, and I've seen it with resource officers with like Parks and Rec, is that Bend PD owns the officer while their salary is being paid for that by that organization. But they can be pulled off for any reason by Bend PD and put against higher priority things. So like they're paying for this officer, but the officer may or may not be on campus because they've been pulled off for another tasking. So that's one of the issues that COCC is having right now on that side. They also had that campus resource officer due to the whole Kaylee Sawyer incident and things like that. There was a lot stronger push to put a campus resource officer on COCC because of their past problems with their public safety department.
All right, well, I guess I will open it up for any closing comments, thoughts, considerations that you would have us consider.
I do actually have a question about, so right now I think it's a particularly tumultuous time for any kind of policing body. I think there's definitely like a lot of new scrutiny that's being paid attention to, specifically in terms of racial bias. I am curious moving forward, and like, I don't know if that we could talk about what we have now or what we are planning to have. What is the mechanism that the school has, the institution has, for evaluating campus safety to ensure we don't fall into a pattern of bias? And in the future, I guess, what are the future plans for either developing those mechanisms or addressing that issue with students?
So in terms of public safety interactions with students, is that what you're referring to, Michael?
Yes, and just how that fits into the overall conversation at a national level. I think I'm just curious what the either current mechanism or plan for mechanism is for evaluating our campus safety.
So public safety officers are evaluated as any other employee is evaluated. So they receive, all public safety officers are SEIU classified employees and receive semi-annual reviews based on their position description and goals. And diversity, equity, inclusion is a part of that review process. So if there is on an individualized basis, there's a process for every employee at OSU to submit a concern through either a bias or an EOA complaint process. That information is evaluated centrally by those groups and then communicated through the employee labor relations team if there is an employee concern in any way. They are considering a policy in Corvallis where they're looking at a direct public safety feedback loop that is currently under evaluation that has not yet been formalized. And that would be required to be reviewed by the President's Office and the Board of Trustees if and when it were to go into effect. I have not, I saw an early draft and I have not seen where that has gone. In terms of, Michael, we've talked about a departmental review. There's no structured annual or regular review process for public safety currently at OSU, either OSU at large or at OSU-Cascades. That's something we can certainly consider as we talk about our 3-year strategy for OSU-Cascades, what might make sense and how we do that on some sort of regular or regularized schedule going forward. So there is, I guess in short, there is a process for individuals and there is not a regularized periodic review process for the department.
Perfect. And I just have another question, and this is mainly for the recording, but I am curious if a student experienced what they felt was biased by a campus safety officer, what is the process for them to inform somebody at the institution of that?
Yeah, so that is, you would do that like any other bias report. So you would fill out an incident bias report that would go to the bias team for review. And then if there was a finding, they would loop back with an employee labor relations expert. And then through that person back to the supervisor to determine the appropriate action to be taken for that employee.
Can I add a little bit to that, Kelly just to speak into some of the nuance, because I think it'd be really, there's a lot, it can be confusing for folks. So yeah, like Kelly said, you can file a bias incident report through the website. Folks can always, reach out to me if that's helpful, if you want that kind of buffer in that. And things that go to the bias response team, essentially, they are tasked with addressing issues that don't rise to a level or don't appear to rise to a level of kind of policy violation, right? But still, there's value in addressing, and that group really takes an approach that's centered in care and an educational response. So primarily, they would reach out to the person who filed the report to make sure that they knew about the care resources available to them. And then typically what most often happens as a result of things that are addressed at the bias response team level is, like a coaching conversation, right? So a supervisor, has a chat with an employee, or sometimes there might be larger educational efforts, right? So maybe a whole department or a unit might do some training that can help provide an educational response. But if things do rise to a level of appearing to involve a potential policy violation, then those usually get passed off to the Equal Opportunity and Access Office. And they have equity associates that will decide, whether or not to do an investigation. So that's kind of the other side. But initially where it starts is you're not going to get somebody in trouble kind of thing. It's really about just raising awareness and providing education and care.
I'd also like to piggyback off the back of that, Michael. So as far as the hiring process goes, for public safety, once we narrow down our candidates, we also like to bring them in and do what we did previously, like to do a walk around and a face-to-face meet and greet to make sure that they fit with the culture of the campus, which has found us a lot of success with not only hiring public safety officers, but also directors and other people in supervisor positions. In addition to that, all public safety officers, we get a psychological screening with a mental health professional as part of our field training checkoff. So I don't know if that was part of your question, but it kind of sounded like, what are we doing to address potentially avoiding inherent biases and stuff like that in the future? So I just wanted to make that clear that that was also a part of the onboarding process.
All right. Are there any follow-on comments or questions or concerns, things that you want us to put on the table to evaluate as we look forward? All right. I will, my plan when we meet with students tomorrow evening is to continue on. So to share the comments that you've provided today, and I'll continue the list with that group. We'll also be doing a listening session with faculty and staff later this afternoon. So I'll start a separate list with faculty and staff, and then we'll be, our specific next step is to begin the process for a search for a new public safety director. Erica McAlpin from our business department has agreed to chair the search. And Erin has agreed to be our search advocate for that. And then we have a robust committee, which includes Amy Snyder from Housing and Christine Coffin, who is our public information officer and does all of our work around incident concerns and external communications. And then I hope this got back to you, but we have asked for a student representative to serve on the committee. The search will be happening over the summer. So we acknowledge that that is not always an ideal time frame, but we are happy to have that be a part of someone's student worker related work over the summer. And or find a way to engage students in that process. We anticipate that we would start reviewing applications in June. So the timeframe would be by the time we post and do our recruitment, that we're talking June and July for the bulk of the work for that search committee. And then meanwhile, over the summer, we'll be internally doing quite a bit of research and have information to engage with students come fall around our call to action plan.
Kelly, a couple questions that came in is around the recording. I don't know if we finalized exactly how we were going to distribute this, but we do have the recordings of everything. Is this something that we're going to put potentially on the ASCC YouTube page that they can distribute, or what are our parameters for distribution?
I don't have parameters that I've thought through about distribution, so maybe we can connect. I don't see an issue. I'm happy to have us share that with students. I'm going to stop sharing so your face is a little bigger here. I'm happy to have students distribute that however they see appropriate.
Okay, Michael, I'll talk to you about it. Look, Kelly and I will connect on what we're going to do, and then I'll update you.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day, and we will see you tomorrow evening, potentially again.
Thank you.
Thank you.